Hello everyone, Maria Trusa, the CEO of Forme Medical Center. We are back, Reflect and Reset with Maria and Gina, and I have my partner back.
Oof, I'm back. I disappeared for a little while, but now I'm back.
You were a little bit under the weather, so
yeah. Well,
as you could tell,
is.
she looks beautiful today, so she's back.
Yeah, it's very exciting.
It's good to have you.
And I'm so glad to be back at this show, especially.
Yes.
One of my favorite people in the whole world.
And the favorite person that she's talking about is Franco Cabral, the CEO of Inmark Media, a marketing agency. But aside from that, Franco happens to be my son, my firstborn. And thank you, Franco, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And as a proud mom, I'm going to say that I've seen my son go through a journey that it was full of pain, but full of success, and now full of happiness. And I felt that his journey is a journey that we need to share, and that's why we brought him into the show, because there's so many people that can benefit from the journey that Franco has gone through. I have to say that I am extremely proud of the determination that Franco, this young man here, has taken into his life. And I am going to stop. I just want Franco to start sharing with you his story. Thanks again, Franco, for doing this.
Well, thank you for having me. So the topic for today is related to targets and living up to your full potential, or do you even understand what it means to live up to your full potential? That's what we said on the post today. So for me, that journey really started about 3 years ago. It was September of 2015. My daughter, Sienna, who's now 3, was about 3 months. And one night I was holding her at 3 o'clock in the morning, and it was my favorite time of every night, was to feed her, and I was talking to her. And I had the best conversations because she didn't speak back. But I found myself asking myself a lot of questions and talking to her. And one night, I never forget, I asked the question, am I proud of the example that I'm setting for my daughter? And am I proud of the man that I am today for my daughter? And I kind of let that sit for a little bit, and the response that I got, or the response I heard in my heart, was that I wasn't. I was not proud of the man that I was showing up for my daughter, and I really didn't understand the depth of why I wasn't proud or how much I wasn't proud with. The first thing that came to mind, though, was that at that time in my life, I had done what I thought was checking all the boxes. So financially, I had had a lot of success in business. I had the nice house, I had the nice car. I had all the things I thought I was supposed to have, but here I was, not proud of how I was showing up, and not proud because I wasn't really happy. And I wasn't asking myself the questions previously. So every day got a lot harder for me after that day, because then I realized that I was going to work and I wasn't happy where I was. I wasn't happy with what I was doing, but I felt stuck because financially I was doing very well. And I had identified myself at the time with the things that I had, and I thought those were the things that defined who I was. And that was a scary place to be, because I was afraid. And if I left those things, or I couldn't afford those things, then who was I if that's the way that I defined myself? But I knew that I couldn't continue in the path that I was in my career, and I had to make a change. So fast forward about 7 months after that, I decided to leave my current position where I was, and I'd been there for 11 years, and I'd had a great opportunity to grow professionally, but I just wasn't fulfilled anymore professionally, and I wasn't happy. So I started my own company, which is Inmark Media, and I was fortunate enough to found my business partner who was on a similar path, and we got to create a new opportunity. That really is what took me into a much deeper dive into understanding who I really was, and really how shallow of a man I was at that time, because I had checked all the boxes, or so I thought, and all I really had done was learn how to make money. And that is one aspect of what, you know, I believe it's important to produce, you know, for the definition of a man, but that is just one dimension of what a man should be in my eyes, or as what I've learned now. So in that time when I now started a business, I wasn't certain as to how I was showing up. A new father, scared, pressures, anxieties that come with becoming an entrepreneur, and it's a very lonely place to be an entrepreneur, because you can't really tell your employees, your staff, how you're truly feeling and how scared you are. And you know, many days that I cry in a parking lot at a bank, wondering how I was going to make payroll, and you know,
You
scared.
relate there?
Yeah, so
I think many entrepreneurs that are listening to this can relate.
So it's a scary place to be, and early on I recognized that I wasn't good enough to be what I wanted to be, which is a great leader, a great father, a great husband, a great person, and I needed some answers. I didn't know what the answers were. I didn't know how to figure it out, but I knew that what I was at that time was not capable of doing what I have just set out to do. So I started learning and finding different ways to gain knowledge and understanding, and it started out with books, and I was addicted to reading books, and I'm sure you've heard my mother talk about, you know, the books, and I was doing a book a week, and because I was just eager to learn, I did seminars. I did Grant Cardone seminars, which, you know, is a great, sales professional. I learned a lot from a business perspective, but I still kept feeling empty, because everything that I was doing was business, because I didn't feel adequate enough as a business leader. What I wasn't looking at is all the other areas of my life. You know, I wasn't looking about how I felt about me, and you know, how at the end of the day, looking at myself in the mirror, was I proud of what I looked at in the mirror? And I wasn't. And I had to deal with that, and that was a very hard place to deal with, because I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to turn. I couldn't hold my son. I have a son Adrian, who's now a year and a half. My daughter was the catalyst, but my son was really the person who saw me for what I was, and I hated what he saw. And I couldn't hold my son. I had a very difficult time early on connecting and being with him, because he saw me, and I didn't like what he saw, and I didn't know how to fix it, and I was kind of desperate, but I was eager, and I was committed to the path that I had taken. So in finding what to do for myself, I found a program for men that's called Wake Up Warrior, and I started that journey in June of 2017. And I never forget, I went to a business conference, or so I thought. It was a business conference, to become a better businessman. That's what I thought I was showing up to. And then they started talking about the 4-dimensional man, and how there's so much more required to be a man. It's not just about business. So the message really resonated with where I was at that point in my life. And it talked about how you need to be equipped in your body. Your body is what weaponizes you to create what you want in your life. And how you take care of your body, and how I'm showing up for myself physically, nutritiously, my spirituality, my being, my connection with myself. And I started having all these difficult conversations around how I was showing up, not just in business. I already knew I was messed up there, but how am I showing up for myself, and how am I showing up in my relationships and with my kids and my wife, and I wasn't happy anywhere, or so I thought, because I was just caught up in this victim place. But the very first thing they did, and this ties into targets and hopefully the conversation we'll have today, is that they made me be really real with where I was today. And the reality is, we get caught so often in the idea of what I want to create, the future, the pleasure of the future, New Year's resolutions. I'm sure many of us that set New Year's resolution, you probably forgot what they were, because now we're a month later. But they came from a place of in your head. In your head, I want to have a six-pack. In my head, I want to look better. I want to feel better. There's things we think we need to do because it's what we think up here, but it's not really what's in here. And what's in here comes from a place of pain. But we never want to look at pain because it's painful. And the reality of what's not working today is actually what pulls you forward to create in the future. But it's a shitty place to hide the best opportunity, because you're hiding it in a place where that's where the pain is, but that's where the opportunity actually lies. So when I started asking myself questions like, do I believe in God? You know, it's not a question that, you know, I had ever asked myself. I was a not so great Catholic. I checked all the boxes, you know, First Communion, you know, did my confirmation, etc. Baptism. I went to Catholic high school, but I had no connection to it. So in my darkest of moments, I questioned whether there was a God. And if there was a God, why would he make me go through this? And it was a lonely place to be. But from diving into that conversation and fast forwarding till now, and a lot of work, a lot of investment in myself, a lot of financial investment, a lot of time investment, daily disciplines that I do, I have a personal relationship with God now. And for me, that's huge. You know, do I know exactly what spiritual path I'm going to take? No, but that is part of my quest this year. But again, it's coming from the pain. So, you know, the pain of not leading my children spiritually, not showing up spiritually. In my body, you know, the pain that I was drinking 6-7 days a week, 2 to 3 drinks a day. And my story was, I'm not getting bombed, you know, I'm not getting drunk, you know, but I was going home to take the edge off every day, because the reality is that the pain of what I was going through and the inadequacy that I felt was the last thing I wanted to share with my family. Last thing I wanted to share with my wife, the last thing I wanted to share with my mom. But it was painful, it was on my mind, so have a few drinks, I don't feel that pain. I numb myself just enough, and it becomes easier. So there's a lot of forms of sedation, and that's one thing that I learned. It's not just drinking. You know, I realized that, you know, take drinking away, if I'm still not dealing with the pain, I'm gonna find another way to not feel the pain. So it could be doing crazy endurance events, you know, which I had done at times. It could be work. You know, diving into work and working 100-hour work weeks so that I don't have to deal with pain. And from that pain, though, is where all the possibility came from. And I had a lot of hard conversations throughout the process of Wake Up Warrior, the systems and the things that I learned, and the work that I had to be willing to put in to be where I'm at today. And more importantly, to go where I want to go, I'm constantly reflecting on what is not working in my life now. And that is where all my targets come from. And, you know, that's a very different place than it used to come from. It used to come from what I think my mom thinks I should be doing. And, you know, even just recently, I was talking to my therapist. You know, it's something that I still work on. You know, accepting the fact that I am what I am. You know, I'm broken, I'm imperfect, just like we all are. But when you can own that, then you start to create what you want from it. So for me, you know, understanding that my body in particular is something I was very self-conscious my whole life. And I've cycled through what I would call a fit fat cycle. So I would get to 25 pounds heavier, and I hated how I looked in the mirror. And I knew how to train, and I was really, really good at it. So then I would go crazy training. And then I would get into great shape, and I'd drop 20-25 pounds in 3-4 months. I can do that like clockwork. But what happened would be is I had 2 sets of clothes. I would start to fit into my shorter clothes, you know, my skinny clothes. And the issue that I had, it would never last, because it was all about why I was doing it. I was doing it because I wanted more recognition from my wife. I wanted my mom to see that, you know, her son was fit. Everything was on the outside, and nothing was on the inside. So when I didn't get the recognition that I want, because at the end of the day, my mom loves me just the way that I am. You know, I didn't get that feedback, so then I stopped doing the things that got me to that place, and then I would cycle back to the place that I couldn't stand what I saw in the mirror, and then it was this vicious cycle. Until I got real with myself and created some real purpose behind what I was doing, I've cycled my whole life. And for the last 2 years, I'm in the best shape I've ever been in, but it's not because I'm focused on how I'm trying to look. You know, there's different motivations. You know, my mom privately doesn't love the fact that my current motivation is I'm training for an amateur boxing fight. I will be an amateur boxer by the end of this year. That means I'll be in great shape, but it's
Why
not.
you'll have a broken nose? Why you'll
I might
be-
have a broken nose, and then I have Formay in the urgent care
Yes,
facility.
and we'll fix it.
All right, that was my plug.
Yes.
Good job, right? Great urgent care facility. Rehab is awesome. Chris
We'll be
is my
seeing
rehab.
him.
But it's about who I need to become to get in the ring. It's the confidence, the certainty, and the power that I will generate, which has come from first diving into the pain of where I feel uncertain, where I don't feel good enough, where I don't feel strong enough. The pain of not feeling like I can give that to my kids. If I can't be certain for myself, then I can't give them the certainty that I don't have for me. So my boxing quest is about the certainty within myself.
Can I
For
ask
me.
you a question? Why is it boxing? Like what identified you with boxing as that quest for the inner?
So it scares the shit out of me. So last year it was a half Ironman. And I actually had a really powerful insight yesterday in the pool, because last year it was a half Ironman, and I was thinking back yesterday, I did a half Ironman because I was afraid of drowning. So a half Ironman is a 1.2 mile swim. If I'm afraid of drowning, that's probably the furthest place from where I want to be. And I trained for 7 months, 3 to 4 times a week. I had panic attacks in the water. I thought I was going to drown in the water. Now, the water, I could stand up, and I'm a logical person. I'm smart enough to know that, but I'd be swimming and literally feeling like I'm running out of breath, like I don't know how I'm going to get there. And even at my Ironman, I had a moment in the water where I almost started to panic, and my heart rate started going up. Maybe I can't do this, the self-doubt, the negative talk, and I pushed through that. So I became the person that was able to complete a half Ironman, which was really about the swim at the end of the day for me. And yesterday, I got in the pool. I haven't swum in a while, but I'm training for another half Ironman along with boxing. That's mainly because my brother's doing it, and I want to do something with him and connect with him.
And by the way, we are doing the New York Marathon.
Yeah, I got signed up for that too. That is not connected to my targets, except connecting with my mother is one of my targets. But to boxing's point, I swam yesterday, and I had no fear, and I crushed my swim. The thought of drowning never came up. And literally Monday, I had instant anxiety because my boxing trainer thinks I'm more ready than I feel that I am. So he wants me to do my first exhibition fight in 2 months. And I freaked out. And I started to realize, and I actually thought, I'm like, I have never been punched in the face, ever, in my whole life. And that started to freak me out. And all the self-doubt, what am I doing? Should I have done this? What the hell were you thinking? And then I had the moment in the pool, and it reminded me that's exactly why I'm doing it. Because of who I need to become, that I am not right now, but it's really about my kids, which for me is my biggest motivation. Is the man that I'm showing up. I'm proud of who I am, regardless of what it is that I'm shooting for. And for me to be able to say I'm proud of how I am today, it's unrecognizable to myself. At the end of the day, I got a tattoo, which my mom, not a huge fan of tattoos, but
Does
when
it say Gina?
doesn't say Gina, but that might be an issue.
It should say Ellie, not Gina.
Might be an issue for mom and my wife, and not everybody. But no, it says I am that I am enough. And it's in reverse, so I see it on my chest in the mirror every morning.
Can you say that again, please?
So I am that I am enough.
Yeah, that is
I just
powerful.
got chills,
It's so many people do not feel enough. I mean, I'm sitting here, Franco, and I know that for you, because you've been working so hard at it, you're sort of going through it fast, but think about the things that you've touched on. Pain. How many of you out there are in pain and you're not confronting your pain? And the only reason my son has gotten to the place that he's gotten, and it is a beautiful thing for me to be able to see it, Gina, right? Because my partner, obviously, we spend every day, I was worried about my son. And when I see his consistent gratitude, his consistent happiness, his consistency in his work, I don't worry anymore. but you confronted your pain. You're confronting your fears. And so many people don't do what they are meant to do because they're afraid. And look, like the perfect example of swimming. You thought you were going to drown, but yet you didn't give up. You persisted. I was at your race, at the Ironman. I was dying when he went into the water because I knew how afraid you were. And I remember when you came out, and I was like, you did it faster than I even imagined. And I was like, it was heaven for me to know that he was safe. But I remember you telling me that at one point you thought of giving up, and there are people there pushing you. And that is life. There are people there pushing you and supporting you. And you need to make sure that the people that are there supporting you and pushing you are the right people. That they're the positive people that are there for you for the right reason, because you're always going to have people that are going to want to bring you down. But it's up to you to keep going on the right path. So I'm sorry, I just, I'm listening to him and it's like, wow,
We can all relate to this, because I was telling your mom that I used to fly and I stopped because I was afraid. I was afraid of not being able to do it. I was afraid of not being able to fly by myself, and I didn't take it seriously because I thought I was never going to be able to do it. And I told her one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to fly and I'm going to get my pilot's license. And that's something that I really want to do. But that's when you said that,
It's recorded, okay?
Oh no, you can record it because actually Constance is
Great.
flying too. So, but that's something I really want to do, and I'm so sorry every time I want to go to Montauk or something. I'm so sorry I don't have my license. I could see myself doing it, but I could never see myself actually having it. It's completely. So that's really, it meant a lot to me to listen to you say that.
Yeah.
But
And there are, Franco, I think a lot of men struggle even more, right? Because I know with women, we have each other, we talk, we were raised, to be able to express our feelings, but with men, which is one of the reasons I love the Warrior, the Warrior program. Wake Up Warrior. People should really look this up. I mean, I don't get, we don't get any money from them, but it's I've seen what it's doing for my son, and actually there's a few people that are going to that I know they're going to be going through the process. And the funny thing is, I have to say that one of Franco's and Illy's friend that is go through the Warrior Brother program, that I saw Illy saying, Ileana, his wife, saying, if your wife wants to talk to me, tell her to call me, because Ileana would support this program because she's seen the changes. But anyway, continue. I'm sorry.
No, and on that note, being open to hard conversations and to painful conversations, even as it relates to Wake Up Warrior, it was at a time where, financially we weren't, solid yet, and it was a big financial commitment, more than I never invested in myself. At the end of the day, I hadn't invested in myself at all. And, so often we don't invest on ourselves. And that was actually one of the things that really, I learned is I come first. If I'm not good, my kids are not good, nobody's good, my wife's not good, my business is not good. And I still practice that to this day. Monday, I went and I did a float session. I did my date night with myself before I did any other date nights for the week. And I have a date night with my kids and date nights with my wife, and but I came first.
How long have you been doing the date night with Sienna? She's 3 years old.
And she's delicious.
Delicious.
Yeah, for about 2 years.
2 years.
Yeah, and another thing that I've learned is that men in particular, we try and hit home runs. It's especially when it comes to kids. It's like, oh, we're gonna do a big Disney trip, and they're gonna have a blast, and that's gonna make me a good dad. But it's how I show up every day. It's not the big things. It's what do I do on a daily basis to keep my kids in my heart and to show them that they're in my heart. So a note on the mirror, which is something I do daily, for my daughter, a drawing or something. Those are things that I learned. It's a lot less complicated than
Can you tell us about the emails that you created for them?
Yeah, so the I have an email for both of my kids. I don't share it with them because they can't read, but I send about 3 to 4 emails a week to one of them. Sienna's, I think she's close to 200 emails in the last 2 years. But it's about me putting my kids in my heart every day, or a few times a week, and it's aligning my heart with my purpose. Why I do what I do. It's a reminder in the morning. Someday it's a gift that I'll pass along, and the revelations that Daddy has. I want her to learn from my lessons. My mistakes, my mess ups. What I didn't do well. Because it's a short segment. You're hearing some of the successes, but they all start from a place of pain and being in a really dark, a lonely place. And as a man, it is scary to be vulnerable, and especially at home. I grew up with a very typical Hispanic culture, but I don't think it's just Hispanic culture, where the man needs to be tough, and tough is, being strong, and vulnerability is actual strength, but it's not necessarily what we learn. So, I have all these fears, these anxieties, and the last thing I'm going to go home and do is share, because I got to be tough. But with that creates disconnection at home. Disconnection with my kids, disconnection with my wife. If I'm not sharing where I'm truly at, and I'm stuffing it down, or I'm sedating, I'm pretending, then I'm pretending everywhere. Because I'm pretending at work, because I have to be Superman, or that's the thought that I had, when the reality is, like, building a business is hard, and it's beautiful, and it's scary, and it's rewarding, and it's all of those things wrapped up. But nobody's perfect. Nobody can take it on the chin without, feeling some pain that comes with it. That's part of what the reward is. But I gave myself no space for that. And because I had this thought, I gotta be the man, and my perception of what the man was totally wrong. And yes, that's a big part of what has changed for me. And it's something I'm constantly working on. But when it comes to targets and what you want to accomplish this year, it all starts with, where are you today? We are so focused on the destination, but just like GPS, you can't get to where you want to go if you don't have a starting point.
So how does somebody know where they are today? You're saying that you have to build people with soul. So you're sitting there and you're talking to somebody. And how do I know where I am today? Like, what do I look for?
So, obviously there's some systems related to Wake Warrior that were helpful, but I'm reading another book called You Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. Great book, highly recommended. But he talks about the mirror, something mirror exercise. I forget what it's called, but basically the honesty mirror. So it's looking in the mirror. So what I would suggest is, take some time and create some space. We never actually take the time to ask ourselves powerful, difficult questions. So in your body, as it relates to how you take care of you, what accomplishes everything else you want to do, what does it look like today? What are the facts today? What is the truth? What do you weigh? What's your body fat? Have you gone to the doctor recently? Have you done a checkup? Do you know what your health is? What do you put in your body? Do you drink? Do you do drugs? Do you eat obsessively? Just the facts. Just forget about the feelings. This is how I am today.
And be honest.
And be honest. And then you take the same approach to your spirituality, your connection with God, or whatever you follow, your connection with yourself, your being, your mental state. Then your relationships at home, with your kids, do you talk to your kids? Do you have a real connected relationship? Do you spend time with them? Do you spend quality time? Your significant other, your whoever it is. And be honest, like, these are the facts. I have a great relationship here because I do X, Y, and Z. Then in your business, that's easy. What's the bank account look like? What's the savings account? What's your investment? Are you set up for retirement? Are you do you have a will? Are you protected for your future? God forbid something happens. And then those are the facts. And then you let that sit for a second, and then the next step would be how do you feel about the facts today? That's the painful part. That's where the special sauce is For me, when I sat down and I had to write down, I am drinking 6 days a week, 2 to 3 times drinks a day. And then I looked at it and I said, how do I feel about that? Oof, that was painful. But from that pain, that's what pulls you forward. And then, so again, there's a process, but it's all about, what are my facts today? How do I feel about it? What is causing that reality today? And then what is working and what is not working? And then from that, you decide all the not working, those are my targets. That's the pain will pull you forward.
And do you believe that handling so many targets at one time is something that someone's going to succeed at? Or do you suggest that they start with a few, get kind of, they feel good that they're on the right path and move to the next one? Or?
So I think that, and again, this is just my thoughts, when you're doing something across all 4 areas, you're giving importance to all of those, and they're all important. How you take care of your body is important. How you take care of your spirituality, your kids, your business is all important. But there's a domino. There's different aspects to it. So you're going to focus more energy on what your biggest anchor is. So what is pulling you back the most? Is it your body? Is it your spirituality? Is it your relationships that are totally disconnected? Is it your business? There's a domino. And then that's going to be a big effort. Then there's an accelerator. So an accelerator is something where you're good. You're better in this area. You don't want to ignore the area you're better in, because that's where you're going to draw power for the other areas. So for me, the one thing I could control at that point in my life was my body. And I happened to have the skill sets where I knew how to train. So if I didn't do a half Ironman, if I wasn't doing boxing, would that kill my body? No. But what I got from that gave me the power to show up in other places. So I don't think you should go crazy everywhere in your life, because that was an overachiever's mentality.
Right.
For me, it was the perfection game. The perfection game is a liar's game. So I'm going to be perfect here, 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 and here. That's ego, talking. But if we focus on the one area that is anchoring you, weighing you down the most, but also using an area that's an accelerator, then you're taking both sides to it. But also little targets, they might be significantly smaller, that still give emphasis to, if you're really good spiritually, you have a great connection with God, or whatever it is that you practice, you don't want to neglect that. But maybe your target's not going to be, I'm going to make this whole massive redo in this area of my life, but I am going to have something constant in my life that is targeted with that, because that's going to help me across these other areas.
I know we're past a little bit, but there's so much to cover, and it's going to be difficult for us to really go through the whole process, because we have gone through a process of creating targets. But I want to say one of my main targets is my relationship with my little girl, because I'm a businesswoman. It is difficult to balance everything, and I actually was feeling disconnected with her. And part of the disconnection, I realized by listening to a lot of the books that I listened to, that it comes from my childhood, in that I realized that she's at an age where I really had a difficult childhood, and I was feeling a disconnect that was very painful for me. So talking about the pain, and I decided, as you know, because you're one of my best friends, so I shared with you how disconnected I was feeling to my daughter. And through this process of doing this target, actually Franco gave me the idea of doing quarterly trips with Natasha. So we have, and then at those quarterly trips, just Friday, Saturday, come home on Sunday, but every 3 months, we are going to take pictures, and we're going to create a scrapbook, and this is the gift to her. And I have to say, I'm very proud that I've taken action, and this weekend, I'm taking my daughter to the city, and we're going to be there Friday and Saturday.
And you're excited about it.
And I'm
excited. You can hear it in your voice how excited you are.
I know. I am excited. She's excited. And I have to say that the relationship with my daughter is changing. And I am proud to say that it was not in her hands. It was in my hands. And that is a gift, because I got through working with my son on this process. the gift that is the biggest gift that I could have gotten, because it's my only girl. And it is a shame that I was feeling so connected to my boys. And I was suffering knowing that I was feeling disconnected to her. And she's a beautiful being, and I wasn't seeing it. But I am so happy that I have taken this journey. And we're doing this show and we're sharing personal things with you because we want to make a difference. We have taken this journey on really improving our lives and squeezing as much as we can out of life. And we want the same for you. So,
and on that note, I know we're over time, but I want to commend you for having the courage to recognize that it is within your control, and it is, we get so caught up in saying, why is this happening to me? Nothing is happening to you at all. Everything is happening because of you. And when you take that approach, that is the approach of a creator. You have the opportunity to create versus being a victim to what is happening to you, and you were no longer being a victim to, I have this challenging daughter. It's not that you have a challenging daughter. You have an opportunity to create a relationship the way that you want it to, but it's on you. Yeah. And that's awesome to see.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Franco, for sharing. I am so proud of you, as you could see and feel. I am extremely proud of his journey and the man that he is today. I have to say, I thank God for giving you the wisdom to be able to go through this journey. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We love you.
Still a lot of work to do. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
See you next week.